Launched in 1977, Voyager 2 was never supposed to return a signal after leaving the solar system. Yet, decades later, NASA received a strange transmission, structured, intelligent, and far too deliberate to be random. When scientists traced its source, they discovered something chilling. A moon-sized object moving in sync with Voyager 2, as if it had been tracking it all along. What was it trying to do, and why now? Let's dive right in. When NASA first received that faint pulsing transmission from Voyager 2, no one believed it was real. The probe had been silent for decades, floating through interstellar darkness more than 12 billion miles away. Its power was fading, its instruments outdated, and yet, here it was, sending a signal back to Earth. It wasn't a weak, dying transmission. It was rhythmic, deliberate, and eerily precise. At first, the team assumed it was just background noise. Deep space is full of radiation and random bursts of static. But this was different. Every frequency spike followed a pattern that matched something scientists knew well, the Fibonacci sequence. That's a mathematical rhythm found everywhere in nature, from the spirals of galaxies to the arrangement of leaves. It's the universe's signature of order, and Voyager 2 was somehow echoing it. As the data kept streaming in, engineers noticed something even stranger. Instruments that had been turned off decades ago suddenly came back to life. The probe's magnetometer began scanning space without any command from Earth. NASA thought it might be a malfunction, but the system logs showed the device wasn't rebooting randomly. It was orienting toward a specific direction, toward something. When NASA cross-checked the coordinates, they froze. Roughly 1 billion miles ahead of Voyager 2's projected path, an unknown object was drifting through the void, massive, silent, and perfectly still. Based on the readings, it was about the size of Earth's moon. But this was no rock or asteroid. It wasn't rotating, it wasn't reflecting sunlight, and it wasn't following a natural orbit. It was matching Voyager 2's movement. At first, they thought it might be a data artifact, an illusion caused by faulty sensors. But when multiple observatories confirmed the same readings, that excuse evaporated. Whatever this thing was, it was real, and it was tracking the probe. That's when the fear began to set in. Voyager 2 had been humanity's messenger, our way of saying we are here to the universe. But what if something out there had answered? What if we hadn't just reached out, but been noticed? Weeks of analysis turned into months. Then came a breakthrough that changed everything. When researchers plotted the full signal pattern, they found something that shouldn't exist. The same rhythmic pulse had been recorded once before, back in 1989, right after Voyager 2 passed Neptune. At the time, it was dismissed as static interference. But now, comparing the old and new data, the match was exact. The odds of that happening by chance? Practically zero. And then the mystery deepened. Around the world, radio observatories began detecting echoes of the same signal, identical in structure. But they weren't coming from space. They were coming from Earth. More precisely, from abandoned Cold War listening stations buried deep underground, sealed for decades. These facilities, some forgotten entirely, were suddenly active again, emitting electromagnetic bursts in perfect sync with Voyager 2's transmission. Old Soviet sites, British radar posts, even classified American observatories, each sending the same Fibonacci-coded pulse. It was as if something had flipped a global switch, waking up systems no one had touched in 40 years. NASA couldn't explain it. Governments denied any knowledge. Yet the synchronization was undeniable. Every 11 hours the signal repeated, cosmic and terrestrial, in perfect harmony. If Voyager 2 had encountered an intelligent force out there, had it somehow triggered a response down here? Then came the phantom commands. Within the data logs, engineers discovered code fragments that didn't belong, written in NASA's exact communication format, but using modern encryption algorithms that didn't even exist when Voyager 2 launched. They weren't errors. They were instructions, actual commands being transmitted to the probe from an unknown origin. The strangest part? The commands looked like legitimate NASA protocols, but modified, more advanced, as if written by someone or something that understood our technology better than we did. One explanation, as crazy as it sounded, began circulating among the team. Voyager 2 might have passed through a frame-dragging region, a zone where extreme gravity twists space and time. In such places, signals could, in theory, travel backward, meaning Voyager 2 could be receiving messages from the future. The timestamps in the data supported it. Some of the probe's transmissions appeared to arrive on Earth before they were sent. At first, this seemed impossible, but the math held. Something about the region Voyager 2 crossed, beyond the heliopause, was distorting time itself. This possibility forced a chilling question. What if those phantom commands weren't coming from aliens, but from us? Humans from a future timeline, using Voyager 2 as a bridge across time. NASA never confirmed that theory publicly, but internally, panic grew. If time itself could loop through communication, then the universe might be more interconnected and more aware than we ever imagined. Then came the image. A single frame captured by Voyager 2's long-dead camera arrived in the final data packet before transmission stopped. At first glance, it was nothing, just darkness. But when NASA enhanced the exposure, an outline emerged, a smooth, featureless black object hovering in deep space. No light, no shadow, just an endless void shaped like a moon. It wasn't rotating. It wasn't drifting. It was watching. Telemetry confirmed what everyone feared. The object's position was adjusting in real time, keeping the same distance and alignment with Voyager 2 as the probe continued forward. This was no coincidence. The object was responding, and its adjustments matched the rhythm of that Fibonacci pulse, every move in sync with the signal, as if the two were communicating. When analysts overlaid the data from the Earth-based signals, something even more disturbing appeared. The locations of those reactivated stations formed the exact same geometric pattern as the signal itself, a perfect spiral when mapped across the globe. It was as if Earth had become part of a massive interstellar circuit, one that had just been switched on. Scientists struggled to explain it. Some said it was resonance, a natural alignment between frequencies. Others believed it was deliberate, an activation signal connecting Earth to whatever Voyager 2 had encountered. But perhaps the most unsettling theory came from a retired physicist who had worked on the original Voyager mission. He suggested that the golden record, the disk attached to both Voyager probes, might not have just been a message from humanity, but also a key, a universal handshake, a trigger designed to be recognized by any intelligence capable of understanding its code. And if that was true, then the object tracking Voyager 2 wasn't random. It had been waiting. When NASA attempted to send a shutdown command to cut all communications, the system refused. The command was acknowledged and rejected. Then a short burst came through the deep space network, 5 binary words repeating 3 times. When decoded, it read, "Do not interfere." Moments later, Voyager 2 went completely dark. No signal, no telemetry, nothing. 3 days later, that same Fibonacci pulse appeared again, but this time not from the probe. It was coming from the far side of the moon. That's when the realization hit. Whatever was tracking Voyager 2 was no longer out there. It was here. And that raises the question NASA still refuses to answer. What if Voyager 2 didn't just find something in deep space? What if it brought something back? Because after all these decades, maybe the real mystery isn't what's beyond the stars, But what's been silently watching from within them? Whatever Voyager 2 found out there changed how we see the universe forever. It reminds us that space isn't just empty, it's alive with questions we're only beginning to ask. Whether that moon-sized object is a watcher, a messenger, or something else entirely, one truth remains. Humanity has just crossed another line into the unknown. If this story sparked your curiosity, click like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Galactic Breaking News. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next discovery that could rewrite what we know about the cosmos. At 15 billion miles, Voyager's telemetry suddenly turned to gibberish. Spikes in plasma, scrambled attitude data, and a mystery that made NASA scramble. Was it the heliopause acting up, a failing onboard computer, or something else rewriting our models of the sun's edge? We'll trace the data, the quick fixes, and the real fallout. Let's dive right in. The moment NASA realized something was wrong with Voyager, it wasn't a headline. It was a quiet moment of disbelief. A string of unreadable numbers appeared on the monitors, replacing decades of perfectly stable telemetry. For a mission that had been a model of precision for nearly half a century, that single anomaly was enough to make engineers stop talking mid-sentence. Voyager was nearly 15 billion miles away, in a region of space no human had ever reached. Its faint signal, just a whisper of radio energy, traveled through the darkness for almost a full day before arriving at Earth. When scientists looked closer, they found that the probe was reporting impossible data about its own orientation. It seemed to believe it was spinning wildly, yet somehow its antenna still pointed directly toward home. If that had changed, we wouldn't be hearing from it at all. That contradiction was chilling. Everything seemed normal, and yet completely wrong. NASA's engineers began to suspect the issue lay in one of the oldest parts of Voyager's brain, the Attitude and Articulation Control System, or AACS. This little computer controls the spacecraft's posture, adjusting tiny thrusters to keep its antenna aligned with Earth. Without it, Voyager would fall silent forever. But how could a computer that had worked flawlessly for 45 years suddenly go astray? Radiation, aging circuits, a memory fault. They couldn't send a repair crew. All they had were hours of patience and decades of experience. Through the slow rhythm of data transmissions, engineers pieced the puzzle together. It turned out that the spacecraft had quietly switched to using an old, faulty memory section that hadn't been touched since the early 1980s. A digital ghost buried deep inside the system. It wasn't that Voyager had lost its mind. It was simply speaking through a broken channel. So they wrote a single command, a short message sent across billions of miles. Use the primary computer again. And then they waited. 22 hours of silence. Then a faint tone returned, steady and clear. Voyager had corrected itself. After nearly half a century in space, it still listened. That moment was more than technical success. It was emotional. Every scientist in the control room knew what it meant. The oldest explorer humanity ever launched was still alive, still thinking,